I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Mr. President of the General Assembly, Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, we have all gathered here, the world leaders, with the responsibility of a better global vision and the will to make it happen. There is no better and more representative framework than our 79-year-old United Nations, anchored in the UN Charter and the international law. However insecure the world is today, the answer to our problems will always be more cooperation and more solidarity. Romania will always uphold the international world order with the United Nations at its core. If we want to find the solutions, we need to have a more responsible look at our world, to understand its challenges. Let us remember what brought us here together in the first place: peace as a state of spirit, as a purpose, as a tool. Regrettably, we see around the globe that insecurity, violence, conflicts, and even war have taken a firm grip on our world. Our main challenge is finding the much-needed solutions to restore and safeguard peace. Otherwise, the international order and the international law are ours to lose. When diplomacy is the most difficult tool to use, it is precisely then when we need to use it most. Look at the dire global consequences of the Russian war against Ukraine. It has unleashed the greatest security crisis in Europe in recent history, in breach of the international law and with implications going well beyond Europe. In this context, Romania has extended a strong, multidimensional support for Ukraine and its people, and we are committed to maintain it for as long as it is needed. At the same time, Romania will continue its unwavering support to consolidate the resilience of the Republic of Moldova, the second most affected country by this war. Our security is not regional, it is global. This brutal war has already harmed nations and people across the world. Food security stands proof. My country has a crucial role in facilitating the grain exports from Ukraine through our ports on the Danube and at the Black Sea. A long-term conflict is unacceptable, and we must stay the course. Ukraine needs the resolute support of all UN member states determined to uphold the international law and the United Nations Charter. Romania fully supports the peace initiative of President Zelensky. It is the only approach to ensure a just and lasting peace in full agreement with the UN Charter and the international law. Ladies and gentlemen, protecting all civilians must remain our common objective. Almost a year ago, the heinous attack committed by Hamas against Israeli civilians has shocked the world. Against the spiral of violence that followed, our actions based on Security Council resolutions should prevail. The end of hostilities, a safe release of all hostages, and facilitation of the safe shipment of the humanitarian aid for the civilians in Gaza are imperatives no one can deny. Furthermore, we support all efforts to resume the political process based on the two-state solution, coexisting in peace and security within safe and recognized borders. More broadly, around the world, there are alarming calls to stop blatant violations of human rights under many forms and rooted in different causes. There is a sense of urgency that remains unanswered. Conflict prevention and peacekeeping are essential tools in this regard. At the same time, we must support the cooperation with regional organizations in view of their role in preventing, keeping, and enforcing peace. Distinguished audience, the impact of climate change is a growing threat to our security, and its consequences are already obvious. As these negative events increase, they impact demography, economies, energy, connectivity, and geopolitics. It is vital to further enhance international cooperation and ensure the much-needed civil protection mechanisms. Romania actively participates at the international level in the exercises, projects, and actions to provide emergency response, especially to limit the impact of wildfires. The UN system is essential to mainstream our efforts and to create synergies. We need to accelerate our work to keep the 1.5 degrees target alive. And since climate change is a threat multiplier, Romania supports an integrated approach to the climate and security nexus within the United Nations system. Green transition also includes energy transition, while ensuring energy security as an important development marker. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in an era when we could fully enjoy the opportunities offered by information, innovation, and connections. Nevertheless, instead of harnessing their potential to our common benefit, we see increased distrust and hatred. We see polarization and rise of extremism instead of coexistence and tolerance. Technology misuses, disinformation, and other hybrid tools are at the center of the problem, with the aim of undermining our security. In such times, it has become way easier to destroy than to build. But it is now that we need to seek strength in global institutions, principles, and values, all of those which serve to safeguard human dignity. And human dignity cannot be secured without human rights. They are never optional and continue to stand as one of the fundamental pillars of the United Nations system. In this regard, international legal instruments have a crucial role. For example, in digital transition, we see that technology is a global amplifier of trends. It is up to us to decide whether it will contribute to a more effective and accessible public services. We also have to recognize the essential role of civil society, the human rights defenders, and the involvement of youth in advancing human rights. We are also following the situation of gender equality and the fight against gender violence. Romania is a firm supporter of gender equality, which we promote as member of the Human Rights Council and most recently of the Commission on the Status of Women. Distinguished audience, there is no viable alternative to the United Nations and the principles upon which the organization was built, which remain more valid than ever. Our focus is to continue the United Nations reform so that it will be fit to address current challenges and the ones looming, a more effective and more efficient United Nations, a more representative United Nations where trust can be fostered. Romania advocates for an extended Security Council where transparency and accountability are the norm, not the exception. A UN more accessible to the public and more meaningful, where youth can have a say on matters affecting them, where the voices of the civil society and other stakeholders are heard. This is why a pact for the future was so urgently required to give fresh shape and purpose to our vision for the next generations. Finally, the United Nations has a continuous aspiration for a better world, from those who dreamed of peace and tolerance to those who will never stop fighting for it. A world where sovereignty, territorial integrity, international law and human rights are respected, where each country can choose its own path with dignity and free from aggression, where every citizen is safe and free. This is our credo, and this is our call for action. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of Romania.